Welcome to the 4 Key Steps to Fund Your Dream. My name is Ikwabi Asian. I am a writer, creator, consultant, and the founder of Crowdfund Your Dream, a fundraising and marketing course for artists and entrepreneurs. I help people just like you learn how to tell their stories, market themselves, and raise money for their work for the longevity of their career. And today I just wanted to share with you the 4 key steps to fund your dream, in case you were wondering. So let's get started. So first, what is your dream project? How much will it cost? How will you raise the money? Just want you to take a couple seconds and ask and answer. Sorry, I'm in Brooklyn recording this live, so you're gonna hear car horns outside, an occasional marching band, which I did hear today. Maybe even some sirens, so just bear with me. So your options for what most people tend to think when they need to raise money for a project or business are, okay, I need a rich aunt or uncle, somebody with money, right? Maybe I'm going to take on an extra job and save money. Maybe that's going to take me months or years, but eventually I'll get there. Some people like to spend a lot of time applying for grants, fellowships, and residencies. I don't knock it. I've been there and done that. But as I like to say, grants are the gift that never gives. Because as many of you know, you apply for a grant, you take anywhere from 3 to 12 months to figure out if you got it or not, and then you don't get it, right? Maybe you do sometimes, but I felt like I spent a good 10 years applying for grants and only got 1.5 grants in that time. I don't know what 1.5 means, but if you know the type of grants which say, you know, some people get money and other people just get to become a finalist, right? Then you know what I'm talking about, the half. So other people want a patron, right? That's somebody with lots of disposable income, cash that is burning a hole in their pocket. And if you're like me, a fundraiser is actually the last option you consider when you think about raising money for your project or business. So yes, most people do think if I have a rich uncle, grants, fellowships, or some kind of major backing, then yeah, I can raise money for my project or business. But here's what happens. They wait and wait and wait for someone else to make their dreams come true. Basically, it's like you're waiting for someone else to green light you and you haven't green lit yourself. So first, there's a little brief pop quiz. I like doing these when I teach my courses, workshops, and webinars. So what is the best way to fund your creative dream? It's actually a fundraiser. When you think about it, a fundraiser is the most law of attraction, Oprah type of solution to raising money for your creative dream, right? It's when you tell the world what it is you want to bring into the world and the universe responds back, yes, we will support you. It's the most proactive way you can go. It's not sitting around waiting for a grant to get back to you. It's not waiting for your uncle or auntie to pick up the phone. It's not waiting for some patron to make your dreams come true or to get a knock on the door and someone says, we heard you have a lot of potential and we want to take you there, right? A fundraiser is the most proactive, productive way to raise money for your project or business, in my opinion. So I want to take you through the 4 key steps to funding your dream. I'm going to separate these videos out so that I don't bore you. So right now we're going to get through step 1, right? The first step is map your campaign. But first, let me take you through the overview, all the steps, so you know what's ahead. Step 2 is manage your campaign. Step 3 is market your campaign. And step 4, you guessed it, is measure your campaign. I know these sound really basic right now, but when we get through them, I know that you're going to find out that there's a lot more to it than that. So, step 1, map your campaign. A dream without a plan is just a wish. Yes, I have taglines for everything. So, first I want to take you through a brief overview of what I mean by mapping. Essentially, it's planning. It's figuring out what your strategy is going to be to raise money for your project or business. So there's a few things you might want to think about. I teach a whole course on this, but I'm just going to give you a brief overview in case you were curious about it so that you know, right? This is your level up. So you can think about doing a live or virtual event, right? And many people, sorry, there's a motorcycle going outside. You can raise money through an event in which people pledge donations. You can do something like a silent auction. You can have a launch event to start a crowdfunding campaign. These are all incredible ways that you can galvanize support around your work. Let's say you're a band and you're going to be releasing a new EP. You can actually have a musical concert, right? Which doubles as a fundraiser, right? So there's a ton of things you can do for live or virtual events. Next, grassroots fundraising. If you've ever, I live in New York, right? So when I'm in Union Square about to head into Whole Foods, someone will stop me. Hey, try to get your attention, and you're ducking and dodging, right? But then once they do get your attention, they'll say, do you care about the animals? Do you care about the planet? Do you care about the rainforest? And they engage you in this conversation about usually a social justice, humanitarian, or activist issue and try to get your support. And typically they'll then ask you for money, right? There's tons of nonprofits, huge nonprofits, that the lion's share of their revenue comes from grassroots donations from folks just like you and me. This is a tried and true fundraising strategy. Also, if you've ever gone to church and seen somebody pass a basket, yes, that is a fundraising strategy. So you are familiar with some of these already. I just want to make sure that you're clear about how you might use them to support your own work. Next is a letter writing campaign. I first started doing letter writing campaigns in college when my a cappella group was doing a singing tour, and we were going to be traveling to Cape Town, South Africa. And so we did a letter writing campaign of friends and family to ask them to support our cause. And since then, I've never failed to do a letter writing campaign for any fundraiser I'm doing for my work. I forgot to really introduce myself. I make films. I got my MFA from NYU Tisch School of the Arts. And when I was there, I actually launched a fundraising campaign that raised $15,000 in 4 weeks for my short film, and I teach everybody how they can do the same. And a big part of my campaign was a letter writing campaign to friends and family. I'm Nigerian. I grew up in this African immigrant community in upstate New York. And I knew, although I was in New York City, I should send some letters to my friends and family who might want to donate to my campaign. And I physically, mailed letters to them and asked them for donations. So this may be something you think about doing as well. Next, crowdfunding. This is what most people are aware of. That's why my flagship course is actually called Crowdfund Your Dream, because when you talk about fundraising, most people have at least heard about crowdfunding, right? Typically, it's using some kind of a digital platform, either for a rewards-based or equity-based campaign. So basically, for rewards-based, someone gives you money and you send them a gift as a thank you. For equity-based, someone invests money in your project or business, and they get a share. They get equity in your project and a share of the profits. So you may already have heard of Kickstarter, Indiegogo, GoFundMe, all the rest of them. A crowdfunding campaign is typically time limited. So people have only a short window opportunity to donate, right? And you can choose different options. You can have it be flexible funded or fixed funded. Flexible meaning whatever you raise by the deadline you get to keep. Fixed meaning if you don't hit your goal, you don't get anything. So there's a lot of different strategies you might want to approach when you do a crowdfunding campaign, but this is one that you probably know a lot about already. So let me stop there. Next, a Patreon, which essentially is an ongoing crowdfunding campaign. Rather than being time limited, it goes on forever. And so essentially you're building a fan base of patrons who are giving you typically a monthly fee to continue producing your work. They're essentially subsidizing your ongoing art making, right? Next is equity investment. And again, we've talked a little bit about that. That is when an investor invests in your project or business, and then they get equity in it and a share of the profits. When I did my fundraiser, I had a multi-platform strategy. I had a crowdfunding campaign on Indiegogo. I did a letter writing campaign to friends and family. I had a fiscal sponsor through Fractured Atlas, and I got an equity investor. So typically to get an equity investor, you'd put together something called a prospectus, which lets them know if they invest in you, what are their chances of return, right? What is the potential impact of your work? What is the project or business about? Who are you? Why are you the right person to do it? And you help them assess the risk and the benefit and reward of working with you. Next, renting or buying names. Yes, you can do this. Some nonprofits sell lists of names. Some corporations sell lists of names. I'm sure you've gotten emails from companies before and they seem to know everything about you, but you've never heard of them. Someone may have sold your email address, right? Ordinary people like you and me can actually buy names as well. If you check out the People Finder database, Google People Finder, that's actually a database of high net worth individuals, right, who donate to causes. And you can search the database for a fee and gain access to these high net worth individuals. And I would encourage you, if that's something you think about doing, to do some research on them to figure out what is the mission, vision, or values of their foundation, and if your work aligns with them. And then you would basically do a cold call. I do encourage most of the time that you try to find a warm lead, as in if you have a person that you know that's 2 or 3 degrees away from you and you can get an introduction, that's better. But renting or buying names is possible. And then we talk about corporate sponsorship. This is typically more applicable for folks that do like large scale events, like maybe, sorry, there's an airplane going overhead, so you're gonna hear that. A corporation will sponsor your street fair. You can have a corporation, maybe you're a local arts organization and you have an event coming up and you're selling ad space in a brochure. There's a lot of different ways that a corporate sponsor can come into play. And typically you put together some sort of sponsorship package and you let them know if they give it a certain level, what are the different benefits they get for that. You can have a corporate sponsor that underwrites an entire conference where you might attend. This is pre-pandemic days. You might attend and then you see this big banner name above the marquee of whatever the auditorium or conference hall is. And then a lot of this is also moving virtually now. If any of you attended Planet Afropunk, which is typically an in-person festival, then you might have followed up and attended this year when it was completely virtual and it was called Planet Afropunk. And what's typically a heavily corporately sponsored festival, which in the old days, I've lived in Brooklyn for a long time, and in the old days they didn't have a sponsor. I remember when Mountain Dew came on that first year, and I remember going to the park. And it was literally very scrappy in those days. You'd have a couple bands on stage and a few people milling around the park. I remember going in that day and there were bins and bins of Mountain Dew because they'd gotten their first corporate sponsor. It's light years away from that now. But even this year in the virtual festival, all of that digital real estate on that page where you saw the live feed of all of the shows and videos, et cetera, and artists and conversations performing, each piece of real estate on that page had been sold to a company. So you could see their logo, you could click through and go to their site, and you saw who was supporting and underwriting that digital iteration of the festival. So this is something that plays in a lot. So think about it, right? This also comes into play, let's say you're a filmmaker, you may look for a corporate sponsor to pay for plane tickets to fly your crew or cast somewhere. So there's a lot of fundraising strategies you can mix and match. Look through this list, see what works for you. So yes, in general, successful campaigns spend several months planning in advance of a 30 to 60 day fundraiser. They don't just hit publish live on Kickstarter and money rains from the sky. Typically, most of my students, until I firmly say that out loud, aren't quite clear about that. So what I mean is that it's not on accident that most campaigns that are wildly successful are successful. Some people have this idea that if you just start the page, that there's some sort of natural audience on Kickstarter or Indiegogo, of an audience of strangers who are just going to come and give you money, but that's not the case. You actually have to plan out and figure out what your strategy is going to be. And then you launch, and then successful planning yields a successful campaign. Okay, so that is part 1, step 1 of the 4 keys to fund your dream. Tune into the next video where we are going to discuss step 2. Cannot wait. See you soon.